when you're with LA Posse, is it Big Dad and Muffler, just them, or is Pooh and Bobcat there at that time? Or
well, so Pooh is in and out.
okay.
Now Bobcat is definitely there. Bobcat is when I first wrote the 2 songs that we were going to demo. That's why I said there's so much stuff in between. When I first wrote the 2 songs that I was going to demo, Bobcat was like a Tupac, if you will, in a way that he was very passionate about what it is he wanted you to know, what he did. He was very precise and very, really, really in tune with DJing to the point where it was like he would practice like he was a rapper. Like, no, Bobcat, was like he was really, really the cut master. Not saying cut creator wasn't, but Bobcat was like really, really in it. And he's like, you can't be just sounding like that. You just sound like you rapping. He's like, you got to have something to it. He's like, you know what? This is what we're going to do. Every time you come over here, you're going to go in that room because they had an empty room. You're going to go in that room. You're going to sing them songs and you're going to say it. And when I come in there, it better sound like you want it, like you hungry. I don't want to hear that. You sound like you rapping, like you just want to, anybody can do what you're doing. And I was so offended because I was like, look, I'm all right. I know I'm all right. Like, I'm the truth. Like, but then when somebody tests that, it only makes you better. So before I could demo the song, I did it for Bobcat probably like 10 times. He's like, all right, now you ready. Bobcat was like a drill sergeant. And, he stayed with them too. So we were all there. He was like a drill sergeant. So it was me, Muffler, Daryl, Bobcat, Pooh in and out, but then Pooh wound up going back to LA. And eventually Bobcat too, but Bobcat became LL's DJ for a while. So he was always around after that anyway.
Right. Well, that's So then why, if they got the deal, why didn't they end up working with you? Granted, your album came out a few years later, but why didn't you have stuff from them on what ended up being Daddy's Little Girl?
Because they left. And when they left, but by the time I started recording, they were gone. They were back in LA. And they didn't even submit, they didn't even submit tracks, which was weird. Like, it was, because, once you got in, it was like you got sucked up by everybody. It was like, you had Davey D and you had Public Enemy, you had Run. Like, I was around all these people. And still it took a while for the record to happen. And the first record I recorded, I believe, was Clap Your Hands with Davey D, and all of us was on that song. And I did a song with Allison Williams even thereafter. But it was a while before I even did Letting Off Steam. And in between, fun fact, Russell wanted me to understand what this whole thing was about and how important it was to know what touring was and all this other stuff. So he sent me on a tour. What was the name of that tour? It was a Def Jam tour, but it was LL Cool J, Eric B. and Rakim, Public Enemy. I mean, it was like 10 acts. Okay. And he was like, I want you to go on there. And he said, I'm going to sit you on Houdini's bus. He gave me a per diem of like $300 a week back then. So he was like, you have your own food money, whatever, just sit tight. And I want none of y'all trying to do with her. You know what I mean? Like, don't nobody trying to that bullshit. So anyway, everybody's like, come on, that's little sis right there. So I was actually able to go on tour and hang out with all these people prior to actually putting out the record, at least before I even put out Letting Off Steam. So I actually, got to move around a little bit.
How did that affect you, or what did you learn from that process?
Well, one, performance was everything. And it showed me what live shows were about, which is why to this day, I don't understand how these artists, they rhyme on top of their tracks and it just bugs me out. But I just hear, two different sounds. Like, I hear the sound you recorded and the sound that you're actually rapping, which is always kind of weird. But I learned live performances. I learned how to take it more serious, that it was really a business. It wasn't just about going on stage and rhyming. Like, the sound checks were very important, and you learned that. And I was like, well, why everybody, if you don't know, sound checks, for artists who don't know, sound checks are very important when you're doing small shows or big shows, because whoever the sound engineer is, you want him to get you right, so that when you finally come out to perform in front of all the people, all your EQs are there. your whole sound is together, because that's what they do initially on the sound check. They make sure like you test your mic, you're 1 2, you're 1 2. Maybe you do 2 or 3 songs or 4 songs, whatever you're doing. The DJ needs to test his sound. He needs to make sure his sound is right. You need to be on time. You know what I mean? You can't assume that because you're a superstar that you get to show up somewhere late. You know, if the tour bus is leaving, your ass better be downstairs on the tour bus so you get left. Flavor Flav got left a few times. He had to fly in a few times because Flav was that guy you couldn't find when the tour buses were pulling out. I mean, radio was important. Like everybody was going to radio. I would go to radio stations with them. And you learned that press had to happen. So not really understanding that that was promotions at the time, because I just feel like I'm just kind of like hanging out and doing whatever they're doing. But once I got to where I was, I didn't need the media training. I didn't need to, like, they were very, I would say impressed with the fact that I never had to have media training. Okay. It was always just a breeze for me to just, and you love what you do. So when things are passionate and they're real, it's almost like it just flows. It's fluid, you know?
Right. Now, the first real big thing I remember was the Allison Williams, My Love Is So Raw. Mm-hmm. So that one, because it's obviously a different, it's not you, it's a guest appearance and it's a R&B-ish, New Jack Swing-ish type of record. How do you think the perception of what you wanted to be and then what was being put out there with that song, how did that affect you?
It didn't. I thought I was doing a good thing by doing that song because I felt like, because I wanted to be a part of music in general. So I was okay with doing an R&B song. And I actually went on a European tour with Allison Williams during that song, doing that one, those little 8 bars that I did twice in that record. So I actually was okay with that. Again, Russell was just trying to stick me wherever, because here's the deal. They didn't know what the hell to do with female rappers. He had no clue.
So that brings me to 2 questions. First, the shorter one, most likely. Why did you, never could figure out, since your verses were only 8 bars or short, why did you do it the same one twice?
They did that.
But why did they why?
Listen, I put the 8 bars on, Soren, and then by the time I heard the record, it was up there twice. So I guess because they felt like there's something else that needed to be there, instead of just calling me in to do another 8 bars, which clearly I had. I guess they felt like they just wanted to do it twice. I don't know. I wasn't in there doing the same thing twice. They kind of just doubled up on it, you know?
Okay, because I always thought that
going to be treated. That's so funny. I remember. I
always thought that was very odd.
Yeah. Because nobody did that. Nobody put the same verses on there twice. Like, yeah.
That's why it stood out. So that being said, and I know you've said this other times about Def Jam not knowing how to market or do anything with female rapper, given that, just by using a comparison with Salt-N-Pepa, for instance, at the time, they were one of the biggest groups with Houdini, Fat Boys, Beastie Boys, Run DMC. I mean, Salt-N-Pepa's right there. It's not like they were some obscure, they were as big as them. So why was there still this disconnect when you have some examples, even if you just use one, but there are others? Why was it such a thing? I
think because Salt-N-Pepa and them actually figured out imaging.
Okay.
I think they actually figured out what would be their look always, like very fun, at the same time, very feminine, but still, bringing you bars and bringing you, and then there was also, they had a little bit of R&B stuff to them. They had dancers. They had a lot more happening with the group itself, the female DJ. They had a lot more happening with them than I, as a solo artist, had. Doesn't mean that we couldn't have figured that out at Def Jam. It's just that they just couldn't figure it out. It's like they didn't know what to do, because they was like, okay, because look at Letting Off Steam, right? So I got the overalls on, half of it's off. I got the gold chain on, and I'm doing like the B-girl thing, and then you got a little cleavage there, so it's like the tough girl kind of thing. It still looks a little bit like, nobody complained about it. Trust me, the fellas didn't. But at the same time, it was like, You know, it was kind of like, okay, so what's next? They were still trying to figure out where that thing was that would stick, because I am the kind of person who do whatever I want to do, right? And again, not understanding that I need to, and I think it's also, I'm not faulting myself. I'll say that. And not that it's anybody's fault, I'm pointing finger. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, even I myself was ignorant to a lot of stuff where business was concerned. So I'm still being a rapper and MC. I'm still just getting out there trying to make the best record, trying to be seen and heard, because, you know, again, back then it's for the love of music or whatever. And then you have somebody like a Herbie Lovebug who already has his vision for the group and what they're going to do. He's got the music planned out. He's got the songs. We're creating as we go along. So we're trying to find Nikki D. So I think that's really the difference between them and what I was doing, which Salt-N-Pepa is still the most amazing, because we haven't had a group like that. Right. Even all these years later, we still have not had that group, right? But they set that tone and that presence for us.
Well, it's interesting tied into all of this, because when you're saying the imaging part of it, I remember on Letting Off Steam in the video, but even on the 12-inch, how you had the LA Kings and all this stuff. That's where, and then soon thereafter, I found out your LA life, and I was like, well, wait a second. I thought she's from New Jersey. She's on Def Jam.
Pseudo LA.
Yeah. So I was like, that was very confused. I don't care. It's more of a curiosity.
But you see how you didn't get it, because again, who is she? Where is she from? Wait a minute. LA Kings hat, born in Jersey. Wait, she lives in New York. What's happening here? So all that mattered. And you don't really understand that until later on. You'd be like, oh. And people needed to have a sticking point. And I don't think there was ever really a sticking point until we made that one song. And then it was like, okay, we know you can rap. And now there's some concepts coming along. You know what I mean? Like, that's where Daddy's Little Girl came into play. But and then at least at that point, we had a go. And then that got messy through the label. So yeah.
We'll get to that in a second, because the Letting Off Steam video, in addition to Flavor Flav being in it, which I thought was crazy, but where and why was the whole Def Jam Hall of Fame and putting you in it already off of one single? Like, how did somebody come up with that and be like, yeah, that all makes sense? Because I was just like, wait a minute.
Because I think if they actually had them in it, they preferred to actually have all those artists there. But the director came up with the idea of doing the holograms and doing the Def Jam Hall of Fame kind of thing. It's like, okay, now we have a female. So it was just the idea of saying, oh, look, we got LL, we got Slick Rick, we got Chuck D, like we have, Flavor Flav, like we have all these people here, and here's our female. So the only way for them to give me some relevancy, I guess, at that point, or validation rather, would be to have, and then to have Flavor Flav it was clear that the stamp was on there from Melissa Flavor Flav, please, that I was rocking with some solid people. And I think it was just to validate me and to let people know I had a family. I don't think it was a trying kind of thing. I think they just wanted to be like, yeah, this is our girl too. So they used holograms, which, I thought it was kind of cool.
No, I thought it was great. I was just like, man, this is bold to say she's already in the Def Jam Hall of Fame off of one single, or one and a half.
Come on now, what's wrong? I can't be enough for one. Okay.
1.5 singles, I guess.
1.5.
My Love Is So Raw. I guess we give you that. But the other thing about Letting Off Steam, which I thought was interesting too, was lyrically and flow wise, it's pretty ferocious. And how you're mixing in like the sexual stuff, but then just braggadocio and everything. And of course, there's the people that were rapping fast were rapping around that speed. It wasn't like the Twister stuff that we got later.
Right, yeah.
But, we had people like Kumo D, of course, before that, Grandmaster Caz, that were rapping fast, like at the highest level. But for you to be doing it on a single, I always thought was very interesting, because, Jazz and Jay-Z did it a little later with the Originators.
Well, I didn't do that style of
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But what made you rap? What made everybody say rapping so fast and so fluid was good on a single like that?
don't think it was fast. Because here's the thing: I mean, when I make a move, you better be at a standstill. I'm holding up the banner for the annual mic drill. Mr. of the Rhyme Stand will pick up the drum track, hit you with the rhythm only Nikki can come back. I think that's what it says, something like that. So it wasn't fast to me. There was no, there was none of that. So that's what jazz and they were doing. They were doing that stuff. I wasn't doing that. I was just all bars, just bang, just, hitting it. And Sam Sever, who I just always talk to him on Instagram, did the track, who was Downtown Science, as you know, too. We produced them. But I didn't think it was fast at all. I thought it was just kind of like that, a drive, if you will, I'll say. It was very driven. You know what I mean? The lyrics and the flow was very driven, but that I didn't do.
No, I just thought it was I guess for a single at the time, it just seemed very fast. And maybe it's the combination of the beat and because
I think it's the combination of the beat. Because the lyrics that you gotta listen to it. Yeah. I didn't get fast as far as rhyming, it didn't sound fast to me because trust me, that's like 3/16 in the show plus a long ass hook. I would have probably been out of breath several times doing that and still kind of like, and not having a hype man and doing everything on my own, which was fine. But nah, I just did it like when we just did the Queens of Hip Hop in Atlanta. Yeah, it was it came out pretty good there too. But yeah, I never considered it fast. That's the first time I've ever heard that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. No one's ever said that the song was kind of like on the speedy part when it comes to like, the rhyming. I've never heard that. That's the first time.
No, I definitely remember at the time hearing it and thinking like, again, not that it was unreasonably fast or crazy, but just that it was much faster than a single for a rapper. The cadence and the flow and the style was much faster. Because think about it, with if you look at even a Big Daddy Kane, like ain't no half stepping, is much slower. I get the job done as fast, but a smooth operator. His singles were, even for him, were very slow, generally speaking, in this era.
Yeah, but he had a couple that was like a little bit up there with that whole Brooklyn, because I think that whole speedy thing was a little bit of a Brooklyn thing that was happening back then too. That, him, Jazzo did. Who else was out back then? Who was doing that? I think that was a little bit of a thing they was doing back then, but I don't know. I think maybe more so the track. I really had not heard that before.
Fair enough. Now on the album itself, Daddy's Little Girl, as we get into that, I was always intrigued that there was so much talk about what women should do or taking care of themselves or not getting played by men, but then also being like respectful of, being mindful, I should say, of sexually transmitted diseases or getting pregnant or this or that. So, and I know at the time too, you had your son at the time. Mm-hmm. So what was happening either with that or outside of your world that was making you so focused on this lyrically?
Just the surroundings in general. I was living in Brooklyn at the time. So there was a lot of that happening, a lot of teenage pregnancy, if you will. I wasn't a teenager then. I think I might have just hit 20. I might have just jumped out of the teens. Look, late teens, just jumped out. But there was a lot of that happening, even when I was in Los Angeles. And the song was titled Daddy's Little Girl. So I felt like I needed to dive into who Daddy's Little Girl was in order to make the record really make sense. You know what I mean? To make it pop. Because me and Russell came up with that in London when we were shooting the My Love Is Raw video. And he was like, yo, you need to do a song. And then he said, what about Daddy's Little Girl? I was like, oh, okay. Because when I first wrote Daddy's Little Girl and I brought it back to him, he was like, you just rhyming on there. He was like, the rhymes is dope, but that's not what I want. And I was like, so I wrote it twice. So the second one you're hearing is the one that won, the praise through Def Jam and A&Rs and all of that. But the song itself, to me, I had to get into the concept of it all and understanding what a Daddy's Little Girl was. Because Daddy's Little Girl could be that one little girl, which was so sweet and nobody thought she would ever be that girl that would get out there and just do wild stuff. Because that's Daddy's Little Girl. Like, she's not going to be out there partying like that a while, but she's actually that person because she's a little bit sneaky. Nobody's going to think that she did all of that, that she's going to be out partying. And when daddy goes away, she's going to be like, you know, this party animal, invite her boyfriend over and, you know, have sex and all that stuff. And then wind up pregnant. Like, oh shit, daddy's little girl is pregnant. Whoa. So I think there was a lot of that happening. And I love the fact that the song actually brought me to Ida B. Wells, which is a school in Queens for young teenage girls who were pregnant and trying to still finish school because they could not go to regular high school because, you know, God forbid, a girl in school, well, you're going to want all the rest of the other teenage girls to get pregnant. They're going to want to get pregnant because you're pregnant. So, you know, they separate them, put them in a different school. So I would go to these schools and speak to these young women. And it, more than anything, was more fulfilling than any amount of money I could have made doing a show, more fulfilling than any deal I could have gotten. It was just, that song really, really is the one that sticks 30 years later, which is now. But it's the one song that still rings bells in everybody's homes when they play it. Like, I found some guy, somebody sent me a video of a guy online teaching his son, like when they heard the song, like, well, what do you think she's talking about? Their sons are like 12 and 9. And they're like, oh, well, I don't know. She looked like she liked to party too much. Like, she go behind daddy back and da-da-da-da-da. And I thought that was so funny. But I think Daddy's Little Girl was more of a teaching, if you will. And it wasn't necessarily about me. It was just in general about the people tend to think that the song was about me. And I'm like, no, I just got into what Daddy's Little Girl was and who she was. I just happened to have a child at the time, but it was never really me, you know?
Be sure to check out the History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
There will be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
With Fab 5 on Yo MTV Best with NWA.
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The History of Gangster Rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the streets. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The History of Gangster Rap in stores now.